Hello, I'm Ian, and this is Somerset News Network. This is going to be a long video. If you don't want to watch all of it, stop and then come back. It's a long story, but I think I've got to tell it. If anything happens to me, give this to the National Crime Unit, not the local police. And you'll find out why in a minute. This all started in 2008. The company I was working for was closing down. I had to set up a workshop at home. So you've got to let the local police know, and they give you a license to deal in firearms. It was all done, no problem. But work was slow to start with, and I used to go shooting on the local farm, shoot rabbits, shoot pigeons. And down below my house I had a river that went along the bottom. And the other side of the river was about 10 to 15 acres strip of land that was wheat and sweet corn and changed over the years. But this year they'd grown wheat. And when they'd cut the wheat, I go pigeon decoying. I've even written a book on it. I've done videos on it. So I find out which way the wind's going, and the best place to go was down by the church in the corner, shooting up the long ways, not shooting towards the church. No problem, safe shooting, nothing around me, and I'm sat on my own in a hide. Now, the guy that's involved, I'm going to call the guy, because I don't think it's right to name him at this stage. He turns up in a Freelander, parks by the gate, by the church. He stays there for about 20 minutes watching me. Then he disappears, and I see him in the farm, about 4 fields over, in the farmyard, to a neighbouring farm, just watching me. And I thought, that's odd. That's weird. Next thing I know, I get a police car turn up. My car was parked by the church, off the road, so if they needed to get into the gate, the farmer could. He must have put my registration number in the computer they got and checked me out who I was. He came into the field. I put the gun in a slip and left it in the hide, went out and said, hello, what's the problem, officer? Oh, we've got somebody shooting without permission. Somebody poaching. I said, well, it's not poaching because it's pigeon shooting. It's not game. So I'm not poaching. I said, I may be shooting without permission. I haven't got permission, but I've been shooting this ground since I was 15. I was 45 then. And I said, what you'll have to do is go and have a word with Stuart, the farmer. He knows I'm here, because I'd phoned him in the morning and said I'm going decoying. And check it out. He didn't go and see the farmer. He got back in his car and drove off. And I didn't think any more of it. Anyway, the next year, 2009, there was a big willow tree in the middle, and in the gales in the winter, the arms of it had come off, which meant it was a good place to build a hide. Ideal. So now I was a quarter of a mile down a road looking towards the church, which was about 800 yards away. So I set my hide up there, but this time I didn't take the car. This time I used a hand trolley. You know, the sort you get for the garden, and put my decoys and guns in that and wheeled it down. It was, my house was there on my right hand side. About 150 yards away, that's all. my house, but there was a river in between. So to get to it, I had to go down the lane, into the farm gate, and back towards the willow tree. I set up the willow tree, shot a couple of pigeons, no problem. Then the guy turns up again, and he's sat in his car. At one stage he gets out, has a pair of binoculars, and is trying to find me in the field. He knows I'm shooting there because obviously he's heard me. And I thought, what's his game? What's he up to? Anyway, he gets in the car and disappears. 15 minutes later, Plod turns up. What he's doing is he's trying to control the shooting in the area because he wants it. And he's using his mates in the police to harass me. Because I later found out he had at least 2, maybe 3 police officers in his gun club. I had a chat with the officer, explained that I've been shooting there for, since I was 15 I've been shooting this farm. Now, like I said, I'm now 45. I said, why don't you arrest the guy for wasting police time? Because he knows that I've got permission to shoot this ground. Policeman got back in his car and drove off. Nothing happened. Now, I didn't connect everything until now. I had a friend come in the workshop when we were sat down yesterday, and we had a cup of coffee and we had a chat. And he was telling me all sorts of stories about the guy. If half of them are true, he should be inside. I can only tell you what has happened to me personally, because I can prove it. There was rumours that he was badger digging up on the hill. The guy actually told me that he did it. So I can tell you that. Now, that's a wildlife crime. And the farms that I shoot on, we've got a few deer. Now, I don't shoot deer. I leave that to others. And what we've got is they had one farm that was rented out, and it was maize. And they had somebody, when the maize was cut, the contractors would come in and do it, but leave all the gates open. So this guy would come in at night and lamp the deer, which is also illegal because you can't use an artificial light to shoot deer at night. So that's also illegal. And we had like a farm watch set up between the farmers and a couple of us shooters. Anyway, I get a phone call from the guy that lives in the house up on the hill and says, they're here again, Ian. And I went out and I'm at the bottom and I got my searchlight and I'm there watching them. They're putting the light across the wood. They're not after rabbits or foxes. They're after the deer. And I see them. Anyway, the light comes on me and it stays there. Well, normally they would just sweep it and it stays. I hit the dirt because they can see my eyes. God, I've never been so scared in all my life. I'm after trying to catch them. So I hit the dirt. And then the light went up and down and then it disappeared. So I reported this back to the farm watch. And we're still trying to catch them. And it's in October when they cut the maize, they come in and they lamp the ground, they shoot the deer, put it in the back of the car and drive off. They think everybody is sat down watching Strictly Come Dancing or watching television. and nobody's out that time of night. You know, and what can you do? I didn't see him personally, but I know it was him. So I've almost been shot. So this is all before 2010. Then September, October 2010, the guy and 6 other people, believed to be paying guests because he's got this gun club, and the rumour is that he charges a guest fee to these members. 2 of them, I'm told, were police officers. This is getting good, isn't it? So I get a phone call from the farmer just by the Star Inn in Chickenham. He phones me up and says, we're throwing the guy off the ground, come and bring your video camera, because he knew I was making videos at the time. I was in Gloucester, I couldn't get down on time. So when I came back, went in, had a cup of tea with the farmer, and he told me the story. What they'd done is the farm is rented out. He had contacted the land agent. He had contacted the farmer that rents the ground and told them that the farmer that owns the ground had given them permission. He told the farmer that owns the ground that the tenant had given him permission. These 2 guys are on speed dial. They went to school together. What are you doing letting him come on my ground? I didn't let him come on. He said you had given him permission. So now we knew that none of them had given him permission to be there. He got thrown off. I told the story on Facebook. Didn't name him, just saying that you should make sure that you've got permission to shoot on ground before you get there. And this was on Country Sports TV. Now, first week in November, after the incident, I get 2 coppers turn up on my doorstep. Always willing to help coppers, I thought. So I invited them into my workshop, and we're in this is a Saturday morning. And I got a PC and a WPC. The PC had no numbers on. I didn't get a name, I didn't see a warrant card. He had a brown folder, A4 folder in his hand. And he said, I'm here to arrest you for harassment. You what? I'm here to arrest you for harassment. I said, what are you talking about? Your Facebook post. I said, yeah, which one? About the guy shooting. I said, yes, he didn't have permission to be there. That's harassment, and you could be arrested and you lose your guns. I said, he did not have permission to be there. That's what I did, and I didn't name him. Oh, he got out a copy of the Facebook post. He read it, saw that I didn't name him, he put it back in the brown folder and walked out the door. I later learned that a policeman can't come and talk to you unless he's got numbers on. So this copper was impersonating a copper, even though I don't even know if he was a copper. The lady they were wearing black trousers and white shirts. The lady's shirt looked about 2 sizes too big for her, or else she's been working with Weight Watchers and lost a lot of weight. But she had numbers on. And I suspect that the shirt she was wearing was his. So if they check the numbers, they will know if it was her, was a real police officer, or whether it was his shirt that she was wearing, forgot to take the numbers off. This is craziness, isn't it? This is police harassment. Pure and simple. I have not done anything wrong, whatever happens. At the end of the day, I have not done anything wrong. I have tried to prevent crime. That is my sole aim here, is to prevent crime, and especially firearms crime. Anyway, lo and behold, the guy is coming in and out of my workshop, and he's always turning up when I got a customer. I thought that was odd. I get a customer turn up, they park down the bottom, they come up the path, come in the workshop, and I get customers most days. But every time I get a customer, he comes in behind them. He must be watching me. And then, if they're farmers, when they get down the bottom, he tries to tap them up for shooting. I was losing customers. They stopped coming in, and I went through a stage that I wasn't earning any money. And he was coming in the workshop about once or twice a week. My wife said, "You don't like him, do you?" I said, "No, I don't trust him." She said, "No, you've never offered him a cup of coffee." That's how she knew that I didn't like him. So then he turns up, and he's got 10 shotguns. And he said, "Can you store these? My shotgun certificate is in for change of address, and I need them stored." So I said, "Yeah, that's all right. That's not a problem. All you've got to do is pay the rent and we'll work out a price." He left. I had the guns for 6 months. 10 guns, 6 months, £2 a gun per week. Anyway, meantime, Frank, the firearms officer, came in and said, "I understand you have the guy's shotguns." I said, "Yeah, they're in the back there, in storage." He checked one or two of them, that I had them. He said, "Yeah, well then, don't give them back to him until you see his shotgun certificate, because it's under review." What that means is that they've revoked his shotgun certificate, they've got it under review to give it back to him. I don't know what happened, but anyway, Frank ends up with cancer, and unfortunately it was terminal. And because Frank was the investigating officer, the investigation was squashed, and they have to give the guy his guns back. He came with his shotgun certificate, so I looked at the number of shotguns on the certificate. I checked the numbers on every one, and I checked them out. He had his son with him. He gave his sons the shotguns, and they put them in the car one by one. Comes to the last one, and I fill it in the book and I hand it to him, and I'm just about to say, the rent, the storage cost is so much money. And his son took the gun. He then mysteriously got a phone call, walked out the door, was standing in the doorway for about 3 or 4 minutes answering this call, then just walked off and didn't pay the bill. Now it's time I got to get rid of him. Customers aren't coming in because he's basically harassing them. The stories I'm hearing about what he's up to is unbelievable. Not only did he send the police out on me, he's also sending the police out on other people shooting, on ground they've got permission to shoot on. And I'm hearing all these stories. Anyway, it all went quiet. And then he comes in, he's trying to be nice to me now. And he said, "Oh, if you want to come decoying with me and do a video, I've got some shooting. And I said, no, I've been invited somewhere else. It was February. It was absolutely cold. Frost in the morning, but warming up, and the frost was going by lunchtime. It was the first week in February. And this would have been 2011 now. I'm with a group of guys, and we got a shoot captain, and we do pigeon and crow decoying to keep the pests down in these farms. And we've got about 2,000-3,000 acres of farmland. Plus I've still got my farms that I shoot on, but my farmers won't allow me to bring guests. It's for me only, and I got to respect that. So he comes in, he says, we have 900 acres of rape to shoot on. The pigeons are devastating it. I said, well, I'm going out Saturday. If it's cancelled, then I'll come with you, just to be friendly. Didn't want to, but thought, well. Anyway, the shoot captain comes into the workshop, has a cup of tea, and we're chatting. He says, I got to give the guy a hide. He's been on to the landowner, he's been on to the contractor, he's been on to the land agent, he's been on to the tenant farmer. He is causing a nuisance. I've got to give him one eye to shut him up, because they're being harassed by him. So the guy gets one hide down by the church, not the church that I shoot on in Tickenham, but it's another village, and there's 900 acres of ground, and there's a allotment and a cricket ground, and at the far end is the other church. So down by the church, he was going to give him a hide in the field. It was drizzly. It was almost snow. It was the first week in February. We arranged to meet up just before 10 o'clock. I turned up. I was given 2 fields to shoot in below the allotments. This has always been good for pigeons. I've shot hundreds of pigeons on this piece of ground. It was frosty when I got there. By the time I'd set up and put a few decoys out, I thought, well, it's drizzly. There's not going to be a lot of pigeons flying around, because when it's drizzly and wet, they tend to sit up rather than feed. But they'll come out a little bit of feed, then they'll go back and roost again. So I got about 3 or 4 decoys out, that's all. And I thought, well, as I shoot them, I can add the dead birds to it. I set my hide up. About 10 o'clock, I heard a shot. Now, about 10:30, let's say. It sounded like a 410. It was a muffled sound. I thought the shoot captain was using his 410 because he was shooting by the houses, and he uses his 410 because it's got a lower volume to keep the noise down so he's not disturbing people. I thought it was him shooting, just one shot. Then, 11:15, I got blue flashing lights going up and down the lane. I thought, what's going on? They called the police out on my mate over the other field. I didn't know what was going on. Anyway, I just sat in the hide. I sat back, I had a cup of coffee. All these blue flashing lights, the pigeons weren't coming in, they disappeared. I thought, I can't move. I'm not doing anything wrong, but I don't want to cause any hassle. So 11:30 came, and it all died down. So I packed the stuff up, put it in the car, and drove home. The shoot captain comes in. has a cup of tea. You see, people I like get cups of tea, you see. If I don't like you, you don't get coffee or tea. So he says, hey, did you see the cops? I said, yeah. He said, well, the story is, I went out shooting just before 10. It was so wet and horrible, there was nothing flying. By 20 past 10, I'd packed the stuff up and I'd gone home. I was going to phone you and let you know that I'd gone home so you could decide what you were going to do. I said, well, I packed up about 11:30 and went home. He said, well, you saw all the blue flashing lights? He said, yeah. He said, well, the guy came in by the church, went to the railway line. There was a railway line that went through the farm. Shot a deer in the field the other side, which we don't have permission to shoot on, which is owned by another farmer. Shoots a deer, goes across the railway line, picks the deer up, throws it in the back of the Land Rover and disappears. He didn't know there was two ladies on the footpath that runs alongside the railway line. They had called the police. We better tell the police it was him. So the shoot captain goes to the police and says, yeah, we believe that the guy that shot the deer, that called the police out, was the guy. I got a phone call. Ian, yeah. It was a police exercise. Nothing to worry about. How about that then? Guy is illegally shooting and the police let him get away with it. It was illegally shooting on the farmer's ground by Tickenham Star and the police then tried to arrest me for harassment. You see, there's a pattern here, isn't there? And this is how it went on. And there was another couple of little incidents, but I wasn't involved in them. And they would be hearsay for me to say so. We then come to 2011. And 2011, 2012, something like that. I can't remember the date. But I've been talking to a landowner who owns one of the houses on the top of the golf course. Now, he doesn't allow me to shoot the ground. I've asked him before, years ago. And he said, no, it's a conservation area, because I was the wildlife warden for 4 acres of the part of the woodland. It stretches out. It's about 150 acres of woodland along the South Ridge. And in the middle was 400 acres with a large badger set on it. And I was the voluntary warden for it. So this is how I got to know the guy. So he said, well, you know nobody's got permission to shoot. Well, in February, the pigeons roost in the trees on top of the golf course. And the guy and his mates roost shoot the pigeons without permission to be on the ground, which is which is a crime. Shooting without permission. It's armed trespass. Anyway, I have a chat with the landowner. He's got the bungalow on the top of the hill. And you walk down through, I suppose it's 150 yards from the house down to the bottom where the field line is. I said, has he got permission to shoot on your ground? No, Ian, you know nobody shoots my ground. You know it's a conservation area. I said, yeah, I know that, but this guy, the guy, is shooting your ground and he's shooting pigeons. So he said, you come down with me. So this is up at his house. And we walk down through, and underneath the trees is cartridges where they'd been standing. They didn't have they didn't even pick the cartridges up. He said, they haven't got permission to be here, Ian. If they come again, can you let me know? And he gave me his phone number. I said, yeah, okay, no problem. Now, I live about 400 yards away from this, so I can see it and hear it. Anyway, one morning, it was like the reenactment of the OK Corral. Bang, 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 bang. Bang, 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 bang. So I rung the landowner. I said, they're at the bottom of the ground shooting. You know, if you want to get rid of them, I'd advise you to call the police. Oh, no, I don't want to get involved. I've just come out of hospital. I've just had an operation. I can't walk down there. Would you come up and ask them to leave? I said, yeah, all right. Just then, the shoot captain turned up for his cup of tea. I said, come on, we've got a job to do. So I took my video camera, just a little handheld one, went up to the house on the top and walked down through the woods. Got to the bottom, found the guy. What are you doing here? Oh, the golf course just asked us to shoot the pigeons. I said, well, it's not their ground, is it? They can't give you permission. Oh, it was the farmer. The farmer gave me permission. I said, well, it's not his ground either, is it? Just then, shots are going off. Bang, 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 bang. About 100, 200 yards down along the woodland. They're in other people's ground as well, not only this one. And they got no permission to shoot there at all. I filmed it. I asked them to go. I turned the video card. I said, now, off. And they went. Anyway, I told the story around the village and in the gun club when we went shooting. And the police must have got to hear about it. So I had a police officer come in. Would it be possible if I could have a copy of the video? I said, yeah, no problem. So I put it onto a CD disc and gave it to him. A couple of weeks later, I get a phone call. Ian, can I come and do a formal interview with you about the incident? I said, yeah, no problem, thinking that they were investigating the illegal shooting. Well, the PC came in on his own and he said, we're looking at arresting you for conspiracy of harassment. What? The guy was shooting illegally again. I threw him off ground he didn't have permission to shoot on. Well, he says you're harassing him because he was shooting legal. I said, no. He did not have permission to be there. So I gave him the number of the landowner at the top, the bungalow, at the top of the woods. I said, it's his ground, phone him, check it out. Then I get another phone call, another couple of weeks. And he said, Ian, I'd like to come down and have a chat. I said, yeah, all right. So he comes in the kitchen, he's having a chat. And this time he brought the sergeant with him. I thought, oh, this is getting serious. I've got nothing to worry about. I haven't done anything wrong. I've tried to prevent what firearms crimes. Shooting without permission is armed trespass. Anyway, the sergeant came in with him. I told my story again. I said, did you phone the landowner of the woodland and ask whether he had permission to shoot there or not? He said, you never gave me his phone number. I said, I gave you the guy's phone number, name and address. And he totally denied that he'd had it. Anyway, at that point, the shoot captain turns up for his cup of tea. So he said, oh, what's going on here? Luckily, he was with me at the time we threw him off. He explains the story about what happened. That the landowner had asked us to remove him and that he didn't have permission to shoot there. At this stage, the sergeant took the PC out into the garden. I don't know what happened. PC stood outside in the garden. The sergeant came back in and said, Ian, don't worry, I will sort this out. And that was it. That was the end of it. Now, I've been shooting by the church down the field down the bottom of it. That's 2 times the police had turned up because the guy had called them in. They tried to arrest me for harassment for him shooting by Tickenham Star. Now, because I've thrown him off ground where he didn't have permission, I got the police trying to arrest me for conspiracy of harassment. What's going on? How does this one guy manage to control Avon and Somerset police? I don't know. Why do they just believe him? Why don't they check his story out and check with the landowners to see whether he's got permission to shoot on the ground? They didn't do anything. So we're now talking at police harassment and police corruption. And I believe the coppers that were doing the interviewing are part of his gun club. That's my belief. I can't prove it. So, now we come to last year. I did a single line Facebook post. And this lady put a comment on, see what he's like, I'm going to the police. Then I get a phone call from the police, going to arrest me for a non-crime hate incident. That was in September, October. Didn't get to the police station until December. Because the guy's on shifts and he was doing other things and whatever. So, I go in for a formal interview at the police station. I said, well, they wouldn't tell me what the post was. This is the mad thing. They won't tell you what you've done wrong, so you can give them a defence. So you can explain yourself. So anyway, I got in there, and it's now not a non-crime hate incident, it's now malicious communications. I'm looking at 2 years inside. The copper on the other side, they supplied a lawyer for me. And all I had to say was, I didn't mean to cause offence. Well, that's all right. I wasn't admitting any guilt. And I didn't mean to cause any offence. I was just telling the truth. Anyway, I said I didn't mean to cause any offence. And he hands me the Facebook post. It's the Facebook post that this lady said that she was going to call the police. But they'd edited her comment on there out. So it was the post, my comment, and that was it. Anyway, a couple of weeks went past, and the policeman phoned, came down to my house, came down to see me, and said there will be no further action, but you've got to be very careful what you say on social media. I said, well, now you can go and catch real criminals. I'd learnt that he may be a mate of the guy. Can't prove it. But that was the rumour that was going around. My friends were saying I got to be very careful because the guy is mixed up with the local police. So meanwhile, while all this was going on, I'd hired a private investigator. This is where it gets weird. I didn't even tell the wife that I'd hired him. I'd signed a confidentiality agreement, so I can't name them. But they gave me an interim verbal report. The guy is on the black web. We're having to go to a unit in Switzerland to get the evidence we need off the black web. What's that all about? I don't know. And I said, well, how bad is it? They said as bad as it gets. And we will give the report to the National Crime Unit. Don't whatever you do, talk to the local police because they're involved. And that's all I know. That's the weird part. I can't find out what's happening. And me, I'm in limbo land here. By telling my story, am I going to get plod turn up at my doorstep again? This is police harassment on me. And this one guy is controlling the local police. How does he manage it? If you've got any insight in what I should do now, please put a comment down below, because I haven't got a clue what to do. And I'm just looking over my shoulder all the time, wondering if I'm going to get a police officer at the door going to try and arrest me again. You can't live like this. I've done nothing wrong. I'm the good guy here. I got one guy and a load of police officers that are corrupt. They won't follow up on information that I've given them, and they won't charge him with wasting police time. Because that's what should happen. We've got wildlife crime, we've got firearms crime, and we've got wasting police time. Oh, if the lady that reported me to the police could be a sock puppet of the guy. The PI told me that her phone number is his phone number. And they couldn't identify the IP address because it was in another country. And they thought that it was a sock puppet of the guy. So if he'd used a false name by this alleged woman that put the post on Facebook, if he'd used her name and gone to the police with her name, maybe sent an email, then that's giving false evidence to the police, and which is another crime. Wasting police time, giving false evidence, firearms crimes and wildlife crimes. And me, I'm just being harassed by the police, and I've had enough of it. Now, I don't know what to do now. Do I get a lawyer? Do I complain to the police and then find I got more policemen having a go at me because they're trying to protect their own? The corruption is unbelievable. I'm just hoping that somebody will give this video to somebody who can sort this out. It needs to go to the Crown Prosecution Service or the National Crime Agency. Don't go to the local police. If somebody knows somebody who can sort this out, please let me know. Anyway, Ian, Somerset News Network, that's my story. Bye bye.